is a presentation, and then we're going to follow up with a discussion. So welcome to Cash in Hands, Cash in Pockets. This is a community roundtable to increase access to some tax credits that came out over the past year, and also going into this current tax year. So ones that you'll be able to, and clients will be able to recover either throughout the year or next filing season. So welcome. And my name is Rachel Skwerer. I'm the Tax Time Program Manager from United Way of Central Ohio. So we're really happy to be here. Happy to be hosted by the FinCap network of Central Ohio. And I want to present to you some colleagues here. If Megan, do you want to kick us off with your introduction and then pass it off to Hannah?
Sure. I'm the Low Income Taxpayer Clinic Director at the Legal Aid Society of Columbus, and we help taxpayers who are having problems with the IRS and other taxing authorities. Hannah?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Hannah Bonacci. I'm the Tax Time Program and Grants Coordinator with United Way of Central Ohio. So I work alongside Rachel on everything we're doing with that.
Yeah, and a little bit about tax time. I guess I failed to mention kind of what we do, but we oversee a coalition of organizations that work to provide free tax preparation services and financial resources referrals. So you may be familiar with some of the tax sites that are normally available kind of around the community and different local community centers, and this year are largely online. They're probably in some way, in shape or form affiliated with the Tax Time Coalition. So we're just really excited to be here with you today. And we're gonna kick it off here. We're gonna start out with the motivation for having this event, move into 2020 tax filing updates, 2021 tax filing updates, how you can help your clients obtain these tax credits, really hands-on approach to helping you help them obtain these tax credits. And then we're going to do an overview of a toolkit that we are putting together to help you implement some of this into your everyday work. And then finally, we're gonna have a discussion. So that'll start around 1 o'clock, and hopefully you'll be able to stay for that. So I'm gonna kind of talk a little bit about why we are here together today. So this event was really motivated not only by the fact that filing a tax return is always beneficial to pretty much every individual, every resident in the United States, but also there are some updates that are really salient right now to our tax law that are going to some changes that are going to affect low income clients more sort of than ever. So we wanted to draw your attention to some of these changes and make sure that you're helping your clients take advantage of them, or at least that you're aware of them, so that your clients are not missing out on what's available through our tax filing system. So I don't know, Hannah and Megan, do you want to add about maybe removing barriers or other important things about why we're doing this event today, some of our motivations, tax filing, anything you want to add?
I think just in general, how relevant what we're going to be talking about today is. Rachel and I on the Tax Time Program end have been getting and being a part of a lot of conversations around some of the special interest populations we'll be highlighting later in the presentation. And it's these conversations that we had over the past month have been a part of the inspiration as to why we really wanted to do a larger conversation that would reach more people than just the few we're having phone calls with and helping them figure it out. So it's very relevant and important. And we're hoping to talk to you guys because we want to be able to empower more people to provide these resources to clients who are experiencing barriers.
Absolutely.
I'll add that I see people all the time who are very low income and see themselves as kind of outside of the tax system. And that means that they are sometimes not accessing benefits that they could be accessing. A few $100s a year that can help them towards paying past due bills or building assets. And so I think reaching people who are kind of defining themselves as outside of this system and seeing how they can benefit from it.
Yeah, that's a great point. All great points. I did want to add sort of our final bullet on this slide is that as of fall, there were 9 million people that the IRS was trying to locate to help them access their stimulus check. So maybe that number has gone down since. There's not really a clear idea of exactly how many people haven't accessed the stimulus funds that have been made available to folks over the last year or so. But we know that the people not accessing these funds are, coming into our organizations throughout the year. And so we have an opportunity to help them access the funds. So here is an example of sort of, how much money is available to folks through some of these credits that we're going to talk about. So through economic impact payment, so you see here, there's the individuals in the household, and then on the left-hand side, we have the down the side, we have the different credits. So EIP stands for economic impact payment. So economic impact payments 1 through 3 here. A taxpayer with no income can receive $3,200 by filing the type of essentially what's called a non-filer tax return that we're going to talk about today, which is a tax return to essentially get taxpayer information to the IRS so that they can just have funds sent to them or directly deposited to them. And these folks don't have any tax filing requirement if they have no income, but they're still eligible for $3,200. And Hannah and I actually Zoomed with somebody the other day and were able to fill out this form with them, and they were able to, see that money is going to be coming to them in a couple weeks. So this is very real and tangible. So if, again, if we add a child, so if we add a child 1, that brings $5,500 to the household through the addition of the three economic impact payments. And then we'll talk about the child tax credit, the updated child tax credit that is going to be distributed over the course of 2020. So this, you can only access this by filing a tax return. And if you add a second child, another $3,000, for a total of, if we have a single parent with 2 children, $14,200 available to a household with no income. So this is the kind of impact that that this work can have, that implementing, that doing some of these things that we're going to talk about today can have for individuals. Do you want to add anything, Megan or Hannah, to this? Okay. So 2020 tax filing updates, I'm going to go really quickly over those. So we're going to talk about the economic impact payment, the first one, the second one, and then the recovery rebate credit, which technically the economic impact payments were advances of a credit. So, and that credit is called the recovery rebate credit. And then finally, the earned income tax credit had what was called the look back for this filing season. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what that is. And if you could monitor the chat, Hannah and Megan, and see, because I can't really check at the same time, and see if people have questions that are worth addressing, like right now versus later, that'd be great. Feel free to interrupt. So economic impact payment 1 was dispersed in April of 2020. Folks should have received $1,200 per individual taxpayer, or $2,400 for couples married filing jointly, and then $500 for each qualifying child, and they had to be under 17 for this purpose. And then again, this was in advance of what was called the recovery rebate credit. And so folks who didn't get it in advance means that you can essentially get it when you file a 2020 return, even though it's issued kind of during that year. So normally you'd get a credit at the end of the year, and in this case, we got it during the year. So that's why it was in advance. So economic impact payment 2 would have gone out in December, started going out in December 2020. And that was $600 per taxpayer, or $1,200 for couples married filing jointly, and then $600 for each qualifying child under 17. Again, this was in advance of the recovery rebate credit. So the eligibility requirements, folks have to be US residents for tax purposes with social security numbers. They had to have no greater than 150,000 if married filing jointly, 112,500 if filing as head of household, 75,000 for individuals and other filing statuses. And then it was reduced by 5% for the amount by which the income was over these thresholds until like a certain point, and then it would be like trail off. So this is not anything that you need to memorize. It's just for like your knowledge, just so you kind of have an idea. So economic impact payments 1 and 2 were advances of the recovery rebate credit. So how do you obtain this, right? So you have to essentially, to make sure that you receive the right amount. Let's say, for sure you received the right amount. You just kind of, you got it, you were following it throughout the year. Great. Some people might not know, right? So then how do you kind of make sure that you did? So you want to look in your bank records. You should have received a letter from the government. It was a form 14444, and most people threw it out, so they might not have it, but you may have this letter, in which case it would tell you that you received it. There's a tool on the IRS website that we've linked here, and you'll have this presentation called Get My Payment, where you can try to figure out, what the status of your EIPs 1 and 2 are. And then you can also look at your bank records if you have a bank account, or if a client has a bank account, and try to see if you can track it that way to figure out exactly how much you received. Because what you want to know is, did you get the right amount? So even if you got some money, did you get the right amount? Were your dependents counted? Things like this. So if you find out you'll get it when you file. If you didn't get the right amount, you can get the correct amount by filing a 2020 tax return and having it corrected on the tax return. If you didn't receive enough, you'll get the difference. But if you receive too much, you don't have to pay back the extra. So make sure folks know not to be discouraged from filing, because they're afraid that they might have to pay something back, because they won't have to pay anything back. It'll just be, if there's a needed increase, they'll get an increase from that additional amount from what they received that they were supposed to have received. So there's no risk sort of associated with filing and trying to get the difference there. So yeah, we have more information linked here on the recovery rebate credit eligibility requirements, but basically the main takeaway here is, in order to get the correct amount of economic impact payments 1 and 2, clients should file 2020 tax returns where they'll have the opportunity to claim the recovery rebate credit and report the amount that they received and have it corrected if it's wrong. So if people don't know, they can just fill out the tax return, type in what they did receive, and then the computer system will tell them if they're getting a refund or not. And you don't even have to file it. You can just use it as like a calculator to figure out how much you received. So we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But the EITC look back, that's another 2020 update. So for folks who haven't filed yet, or even folks who have filed, it's important to know that the government, through the CARES Act, I think it was through the CARES Act, there was legislation to do what is called the look back for the earned income tax credit. So the earned income tax credit is a refundable tax credit, meaning cash in your pocket, money that you get back regardless of, if you have no tax that you owe, you still get money back. Beyond that, it doesn't just reduce your taxable income to zero. It actually sends you a check. So it's a refundable credit that people can get back, and it's based on work. So the more that you work, the more credit you get up until a certain point, and then it kind of decreases. Essentially, like the more you earn, it increases and then plateaus and then decreases up into a certain threshold that this year is about 58,000. So when a lot of people lost their jobs in 2019. So there were mass layoffs, as we know. So the government said, why don't we help people out by allowing them, if their earned income decreased in 2021, to look back or sorry, in 2020 or 2021 to look back to their 2019 earned income and use that to calculate their earned income tax credit so that they can receive more earned income tax credit. So essentially they said, okay, use the prior year income if that's gonna benefit you because your income decreased due to the pandemic. So that one's a little confusing. We can talk a little bit more about that later, but you don't have to know the ins and outs of it, but basically know that it exists, know that if people's income, decrease, that's something that they should have considered when filing a 2020 or a 2021 return. So here we have 2021 filing updates. Megan, take it away.
All right. So the reason why we're talking about 2021 tax filing updates now is because action you take to file your 2020 return can affect some of these benefits that are really associated with your 2021 tax return. Can we advance one? So I'll talk about the economic impact payment 3, which is an advanced payment on a credit for 2021. We'll talk about some additional earned income tax credit updates and some updates to the child tax credit. So the economic impact payment 3, like the first two EIPs, are advanced payments on a credit for your 2021 return. They started being issued in March through April of 2021 based on people's 2019 or 2020 tax return filings. So the payment amount is $1,400 per taxpayer and $1,400 per dependent. One of the important changes this year is that, or for this payment, is that dependents who are over the age of 17 are included. It's anyone who can be claimed as a dependent on your tax return. And it is calculated based on your most recently filed return. Therefore, people may get a payment that's based on their 2019 filing, whether or not they filed that through traditional means, or if they were using the non-filer tool on irs.gov, and it may not match what their 2020 situation was, and so they may be eligible for more credits even if they got a portion of it now. And so people can file their 2020 tax return, and that will trigger the IRS to issue a payment, even if they originally got a small amount. So another important change is that only one person on the return needs a social security number, which means that somebody who has an ITIN, or even if both taxpayers on a married filing joint return have ITINs as opposed to social security numbers, but they have a child or a dependent with a social security number, they will still get this payment on behalf of that the person claimed on the return with a social security number. The phase out for the payments start at $150,000 for joint taxpayers or $75,000 for single. And we talked about the adult dependents. The age is no longer capped at under 17. It's anybody who qualifies as a dependent. Some people are going to receive this automatically. So people who receive federal benefits such as Social Security Disability, SSI, or Social Security Retirement, VA benefit recipients, they're just going to get this automatically through their regular payment. And so 2019 tax filers will also get the payments. But again, it may not include dependents that that someone had in 2020, but that they didn't have in 2019. So some people have to file the tax return. Make sure it's on filed and processed by the IRS by August 17th, 2021 in order to get the advance payment, and file electronically with direct deposit. The IRS is really far behind in processing any paper returns. They had truckloads and truckloads of mail that they still had because they weren't opening mail during the shutdown. So they're still trying to catch up. So whenever possible, someone should file electronically. And also there may be people who filed their 2019 tax returns that are not processed yet. So those people should probably address that at a later point, but definitely file that 2021 or 2020 return in order to get the EIP3 as an advance on the 2021 tax return. I think we can jump to the next slide. Other updates for 2021 for the EITC affect the childless worker. These are not necessarily people who don't have children. These are people who aren't eligible to claim the children on their tax returns. In the typical situation, or as under our current EITC, for people who don't have children, they are paying a significant portion of their own payroll tax, and they're paying income tax. And in return, they're getting an EITC that's very, very small, as is illustrated in the table here. The childless worker for EITC for 2021 is increasing those amounts, and it's also expanding eligibility. The eligibility for 2020 and prior was adults, I think 25 or older and under 65. There's no more age cap, and there are also the minimum age is now 19, and that's for people who are not in school full time, or for people who are in school full time. I think it's still 24 and up. But former foster or homeless young working adults, regardless of their school status, are going to be eligible for this increased EITC. And so Congress has made the decision to no longer tax them into poverty, which is what is happening under the current EITC rules. It broadened the EITC to include lower income taxpayers, which means that the minimum amount of income earned in order to get the EITC has been reduced significantly. And the EITC look back continues. So if someone's in a better situation because they earned more in 2019 than they did in 2021, that look back is still going to apply. The child tax credit updates are some of the most exciting updates of the American Recovery Plan Act. They increased the child tax credit to $3,000 per child aged 6 through 17, so not under 17, which is the current rule. And it also increases it to $3,600 per child who's under the age of 6. There's no earned income requirement for 2021. And the IRS will start paying out some of the money in the second half of 2021. So the payments could be as much as $300 per child per month, starting in July of this year, even though it's a credit for the 21 tax return. The way that the IRS will know to make those payments is if somebody filed a 2020 tax return. And so I think that's the only thing that's going to show the eligibility, or at least at this point. If somebody does file a 2020 tax return and it would not qualify them for the payment, but something happens in 2021 which would make them eligible, the birth of a child would be one thing, or a reduction in income, then they can, the IRS will release a portal. So we love the IRS portals, but where you can make the changes so that you're included in the issuance of these benefits. So if there's the birth of a child, or the end of a relationship, or a reduction in income, you can still access these advanced payments that are going to be coming. There will be repayment requirements if the IRS gets it wrong based on that 2020 tax return guess, but single filers with income below 40,000 will not have a repayment requirement, and that amount is increased based on filing status.
I just wanted to,
go ahead.
sorry, Hannah, I wanted to interject really quickly and just add about these updates and the fact that they are through the American Rescue Plan Act, and that they are temporary as of now. They're only for 2021. They have been kind of described as the most significant anti-poverty changes, or the whole American Rescue Plan Act has been since Social Security was created. And so I would just take note sort of the gravity of this change here with these credits, but the fact that it's just 1 year right now, and that there will be some advocacy to do around this in the coming year, and how, just to stay apprised to these things. And if legislators are working on bills, just stay in the know and make sure that you're in tune with the things that might affect your client populations. That's all I wanted to add. And then I'll let Hannah kick it off here, and just feel free to direct me when you want me to, if you want me to open any links, but.
Sure.
Go ahead.
All right, so now that they've explained, a general background on what these credits are, and it's very exciting, especially for a lot of clients who are low resource. This can make a really big difference for them, and even more so for clients who are not used to filing. They could do some back taxes and get some stuff. So what we're recommending is there's two main ways that we've been recommending to everybody to file for these credits, and both of these are free options. So the first one is My Free Taxes. And I'll go through a little bit about both. And that's just a free software platform you can use. You really could use any one, but that's our recommended one that we share with people. And then the other option is Get Your Refund. And Get Your Refund is what our tax time program volunteers do taxes for free through. So I'll give more details on both of those right now. So like I said, the first option is My Free Taxes, and this is a free tax filing software. And this one is done like you're doing it yourself, or if it's in the case of a service provider, you can basically be serving as like an assistant while the client fills it out. But it's meant for the person that's filing to be the person actually filling it out. And so when you would want to use this is if the client didn't receive the stimulus or the economic impact payments, or if they received the wrong amount, and you would want to make sure first that they qualify for the economic impact payments that you're going for. And this would be for the first and second economic impact payments currently that we're asking you to go use My Free Taxes for. And the income for the person would need to be a zero income, so they didn't make any income, or if they had unemployment, it was less than $10,200. So that is what the state of Ohio and the federal taxes have said this amount of the unemployment income will not be taxable. And so that's why we need to make sure if you're using My Free Taxes, their unemployment was less than $10,200. And then the other qualification is if they had Social Security income, that it was under $50,000. And then the last thing you want to take into consideration is that the client did not have any dependents older than 16 years old at the end of 2020. There's some intricacies to that, but that's really the general age thing you need to know. If anybody wanted to know the details, you could talk about that with us in the discussion or ask us for more information related to that later. And a note, sorry, I forgot to mention, we'll talk about our toolkit that we're going to be giving out later, but Rachel made an incredible detailed tutorial on how to navigate the My Free Taxes tax return process. So while I just gave you a general idea, there's a very great step-by-step guide. And we have, we reiterate in the toolkit when a client qualifies for this. So that's what you're going to want to refer to if you are going to use this service we're recommending. All right, and then the second option I mentioned was Get Your Refund. And this is what you would want to use if your client cannot use My Free Taxes based on what I discussed for qualifications. It is important to note, Get Your Refund does require a valid government issued ID. So you would need to be able to have a physical picture to upload for Get Your Refund, and a physical picture of the Social Security card or the ITIN letter. And it also requires an email. So those are just important considerations if you would want to go this route, what the client would need to be able to use it. And so more about what is Get Your Refund. It's also a free service, and Get Your Refund is partnering with IRS certified VITA sites, volunteer income tax assistant sites. And so that is through United Way of Central Ohio's tax time program. We are a part of these VITA sites. We have various sites operating in person and mostly virtually, and the virtual part to be able to prepare the taxes is through Get Your Refund. And if you qualify, you have to, in Ohio, you have to have less than $57,000 in income. If you were to go to their general site, it says $66,000, but it's important if it's somebody in Ohio that they are under $57,000. And Get Your Refund is, like we said, it's our tax time VITA volunteers, and they are they're local in Columbus, they're trained, they have to pass certifications to be able to do these taxes for clients, and they're IRS certified. And a cool thing about Get Your Refund is you can file back taxes and amendments to past returns. Currently, that would be 2017 through 2019, so not just the 2020 refund. So for somebody who hasn't maybe filed before and they were able to use this system, and we're talking about these credits that Megan and Rachel had touched on, they could potentially get thousands of dollars in credits from past years if they didn't know about those credits or hadn't claimed those in the past. So it is a really great tool. And there is chat support through the system as well. So that's a great addition. And us as a tax time team are also very like pending on communication with clients to make sure everything's going through. So we just want to reiterate, because since it is virtual, a lot of people can be mistrusting of, oh, I'm uploading all my documents. Is this a scam? Where is it going? We have a secure way for documents to be uploaded and are real volunteers. So on the left is a picture of Tim, who's one of our star volunteers who's been with us for quite a bit. And that was pre-coronavirus. So he was working in person when we had most sites operating in person. And on the right, he had sent us a picture the other week of him at his home, working from home safely on clients' returns. So just to like really emphasize to you guys, and also to anybody who you might be recommending the service to, they are real volunteers, trained and certified, who are dealing with all the paperwork. Oh, and quickly, Rachel, do you want to pull up Get Your Refund? We're just going to do a really quick walkthrough of what it looks like if you were to follow the links that we provide you to Get Your Refund. So you have an idea of what it would be for you as a service provider or for a client who's able to use our system.
So if you do the /UWCO, that's our specific one, but it'll change to just general getyourrefund.org when you like type it in. But here it says, thank you for visiting via United Way of Central Ohio. But
thanks for that note. Okay, so yeah, this is what it looks like when somebody would go in and you would just want to go ahead and click Get Started. It's nice because the system is very, really easy to work through. And so if you want to choose the file taxes with help to be connected with our volunteers. If you were to choose the file taxes myself, that actually takes you to my free taxes. So if you're trying to use the Get Your Refund platform, make sure you choose file taxes with help. And then you would want to hit continue. And there's just some questions it's going to take you through, and you would just answer them based on the client situation. And then once you were to go through these various questions, they're going to ask some questions about earning and stuff just to make sure you are within the means of what our volunteers can prepare. And then there's some basic intake questions on your information, your zip code. And once all of that is put in, like Rachel's kind of pretending to type in, that essentially is helping fill out their intake profile that would then be sent into the system for our volunteers to start reviewing and figuring out what are they missing, what do they still need, and we would walk them through the steps to get connected to a tax preparer. Rachel, is there anything else you wanted to add to that?
I was just going to add that it's available in English and Spanish only right now, but they're working on other languages, so hopefully we'll have more forthcoming. But no, that was perfect. Let me go back here. Okay. Hopefully it'll go from my current slide. Perfect.
So we're getting a lot of questions, and maybe you all are too, at Legal Aid about when am I going to get my money, and when should I worry about filing a tax return. The IRS is saying that e-filed tax returns should be getting, their refunds, which should also trigger those economic impact payment 3s within about 21 days. Would you say that that's accurate, Rachel?
Yeah.
And then oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I haven't heard any like complaints.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It seems like it's been going well.
Yes, and so unless a tax return has been stopped for processing, that's what we're seeing too. When people file by mail, though, we're seeing processing times that are a lot longer. The IRS website says expect extended delays if you file by mail. Some people have to file by mail, and so it's okay to do. Just remember that the refund isn't going to be coming very, very quickly. And I have an IRS contact who says that 6 weeks is generally when you should start to be concerned about whether or not you've received a refund. And she said you should definitely track your refunds at irs.gov. There's a refund tracking link, and you can track your stimulus payments at Get My Payment. But when you log into the refund section, especially if you filed a paper return, if they have no record of receiving your return, then you should think about whether or not you want to like submit another one and make sure that you track that one, or if you want to, or if they have the return but they're not doing anything with it, they'll probably direct you to call the IRS so that you can clear up whatever problems are going on to get that return processed and a refund issued.
Add that Get My Payment is notoriously like unreliable for pulling statuses on stimulus payments. If you have an issue with it, it's not a surprise. It won't be a surprise to anyone. And if you ask us what you should do if it's not working, we probably won't know, but we'll talk about what to do when you don't know how much stimulus you got.
Mm-hmm. And I think that there are some resources in the toolkit that talk about like what to tell clients to do when they're seeking their refund.
Yes, there are. And I think is this me? Yes, this is me. So when do you contact tax time? So like I said, like we wouldn't be surprised if Get My Payment wasn't working. So you can contact us, but we may or may not, we'll have some ideas for you with navigating the toolkit, but we won't be able to fix Get My Payment. But what can we help with? So we can help you navigate using My Free Taxes Online. So if when you're looking at the toolkit, you're not sure about something that we have in there, or you just have a general question, we can address that, help make a plan for implementing this with your clients. We can also assist you in connecting to Get Your Refund services if you're having any issues with it. And you can, it doesn't say it here, but you can contact us if these virtual services don't work for your clients, and see like what's available at the time that you need tax preparation services. There are also some links in the toolkit to different resources for free filing throughout the year. So you can use the toolkit and kind of reference. There's a link to the IRS free tax preparation site locator. There's a link to Get Your Refund. There, it has our phone number. So lots of different resources. And while we're lower operations outside of tax season in terms of volunteers, we will still provide some level of services if they're urgent outside of the tax season. And we're going to try to be more available this summer, especially given the situation here with the new credits. So now, Megan, when should folks contact legal aid?
So there is a question in the chat that I was gonna, should we address the question first and then I can go into that? Is that okay?
Sure, I didn't see what it was.
Carissa from Homes on the Hill, I think, is asking, does anyone know what could happen if a couple were to file a joint tax return with children for 2020 and get the extra child tax credit payouts, but then file separate for 2021 taxes with the children split between them? The IRS guidance is currently that the payment in 2021 will follow whoever is entitled to claim the exemption for the child in 2021. So even if the IRS has issued a payment to somebody else, then if it's based on your eligibility in 2021, the law is guiding the IRS to process things a little bit less stringently because they don't want to put people in an economic situation you know, based on the, you know, put people into hardship. If people know that their situation's changing, they should change it in the portal. If you know that you're getting a divorce and someone's going to be claiming it, and there actually may be a payback so the question I answered was based on the stimulus payment. I'm sorry. So claim the child, it's going to follow the dependency exemption. They're not going to make you pay it back. The child tax credit, there may be a small repayment that will be graduated depending on your income. At $40,000 or less, a single taxpayer won't have a repayment requirement, even if they claim a child. So that where the child tax credit was already paid out. So they're not going to have to pay it back because of the advance payment if their income is below 40,000.
So basically the implication for the client, correct, is this right, is that if basically they should try to be on top of using that online form
Portal.
when it comes out, that portal, it's not out yet. And if something is done incorrectly, there will be recourse for correcting it because it's based on 2021, not on 2020, even if that was what was most recently on file.
Right.
So that would probably be a scenario where legal aid maybe would be helpful in terms of, it's unclear right now. So
right. So if you file the return and you got too much because somebody else is now claiming it, and there are going to be rules issued about how you split, like how you determine what to claim you received, based on like when there's a joint filing. So rules aren't issued yet. There will be a way to make changes on the irs.gov website. And if somebody is in a situation where they need to repay, they should contact legal aid. There will probably be there will be a window where even if somebody received too much, they don't have to repay it. I'm sorry for the jumbled answer.
Yeah, and I guess so we were talking and we knew that there were going to be a lot of unknowns kind of today. So we are hoping, to send this group some updates as we, as we learn more. And also you can find us on like social media and things like that. Tax Time is always being tagged in United Way things. So you can kind of find us there. On Twitter and LinkedIn and all the places, but also just like reach out if you're not sure if things have changed to us via email or anything, but we'll try to send out updates.
Yes, I'm sorry about the jumble for that.
No, it's just a lot of things are up in the air. So
a lot of things are up in the air. And I was so used to answering that question for the stimulus payment that I started to answer it for the stimulus payment as opposed to the updated child tax credit. So when to contact legal aid. So if a taxpayer receives a notice from the IRS and they don't know how to respond, like that is, that's kind of a threshold, because at that point that once you receive a notice, you're in a controversy with the IRS. That's like our tagline, and what our grant covers is when you're basically fighting with the IRS. The other times are when the IRS hasn't processed your return, it's been 12 weeks and you haven't received a refund. That is a time that you can contact us. If you have an IRS debt you can't pay, or regarding stimulus payments, if the IRS get my payment says that says that the stimulus payment was issued, but you never received it. If you have ID theft concerns, or if you're a domestic violence survivor and your abusive spouse or ex got your payment. And we've got some guidance in our toolkit that walks you through some of that. Or if you get a notice from the IRS after you file your tax return, changing the amount that they think that you should receive. So again, that's an IRS notice, but that's someplace where we might be able to help with the stimulus payments. So when taxpayers do try to reconcile the credit when they file the recovery rebate credit and claim it on their 2020 return, if they're wrong, the IRS is going to send them a letter, and the letter will say, we have recalculated your credit. That's usually what they say. We've recalculated it, and it sounds like it's very final because you don't get the information that you need to respond to it until you get to the bottom of the second page. It might have moved up a little bit, but people should respond. People should read both sides of the notice and respond within 60 days if the IRS is arguing about their credit. If the taxpayer doesn't know whether or not they're right, argue with the IRS anyway, and then try to figure out whether or not you need to continue the argument, because it's important to get that response out there. If the IRS responds with questioning items on a return, then respond to the IRS or seek help if it's not clear what they're asking. There's a notice here that says we need more information to determine, and so that's a sign to somebody that the IRS is questioning whether or not they properly claimed a credit, and they're likely holding a refund before they issue it if they've issued this letter. And so it can be confusing to know what exactly the IRS is asking for, and so that's worth a call to legal aid so that we can walk through maybe what the forms of proof the IRS is asking for. Or an IRS notice might say that the taxpayer owes a lot of money, and they always include a deadline that says pay within 10 days. So even if a taxpayer has had a case put into a currently not collectible status and the IRS isn't taking any action, it'll still say pay within 10 days. And it sounds really, really scary. And they mention levies. And so it's a good idea to reach out to legal aid to see if we can help reach a proper payment plan. But before that, take a deep breath and know that it is not as scary as the IRS is making it sound, because the tone of IRS notices can really freeze people and make them really afraid to deal with it. And the IRS notices will also report items missing from returns, which means that if a taxpayer files a return and they've got a missing W-2, maybe they only worked somewhere for a few hours and they moved after they worked there, it may not occur to them at tax time to hunt down that W-2, but the IRS will notice that it's missing because the employer will report to them the income that they paid to the taxpayer. And so the IRS will say, hey, we think you left this off. And so sometimes it doesn't require a response. The taxpayer can be like, oh yeah, you're right. And it doesn't change anything. But if you think that what the IRS is saying you owe or the changes they make are unreasonable, definitely reach out to legal aid.
I'll pull this after you do the intro.
So for the sake of time of the presentation, we knew there was a lot of information we were really hoping to provide everybody, and that we wouldn't be able to talk through it all in the hour that we had laid out. So to complement what we went over today, we created this toolkit. And the goal is really to give you guys or service providers or volunteers references and instructions on how to help clients get these credits that we talked about. And so things we included inside of this toolkit, and we'll pull it up and kind of give you a glimpse of what it looks like, is a really step-by-step tutorial of how to navigate My Free Taxes, which I had talked about earlier, for non-filer returns. And we put some extra information on special interest populations that we didn't go over in the presentation, but there's detail within the toolkit. So looking at like housing unstable clients, ID theft and preparer fraud victims. Megan had touched a little bit during the presentation on survivors of domestic violence. And we also have some info on when to contact us again, or when to refer to, which organization. So Rachel's pulling up the toolkit so you can get an idea. And really, again, wanting to give you guys a really seamless tool. Also, I apologize, my 1-year-old woke up, so he is kind of in the background. And so wanting to give you guys a really seamless tool. We'll be getting this out in the next couple of days to everybody. It might not be immediate because there's a couple touches we decided we wanted to put on it before sending the official document out. So there won't be an immediate send, but it will be coming your way. So this is the toolkit.
Sorry, it's taking a second to like load.
Oh, that's okay. But basically there is like there's like a guide page in there that's going to show you all the different categories of what we've included, but it's pretty much what I went over. We were hoping just to pull it up so you could get a sense of what it looks like. We'll see if it loads for Rachel or not. So you can see the table of contents. So we give a little intro that is gonna be a reminder if you don't really remember after this discussion today of when this toolkit is going to apply to you and when it would be helpful for your client. And then the step-by-step guide for My Free Taxes. We give a little info on the benefits of banking and direct deposit, because that's really important. If a client doesn't have to receive a mailed check, which is often what people choose who are in unstable situations or more at-risk populations, trying to see if we can get them options for other than a mail check, just for the safety and security is important. So we included that. And then, like I said, there's information on when to make referrals.
Yeah, so I'll just see if we have some pending items.
And it might seem like a bit of a lengthy document. I think it's coming in around 30 pages right now. A lot of that is the step-by-step tutorial for My Free Taxes. So just go to the table of contents to really guide you in what you're interested in looking at the time, if you don't need the tutorial. But the tutorial is very helpful, and I would make sure you use the toolkit if you plan on using My Free Taxes, because we mention a step-by-step guide of going through before we have the tutorial, and that really highlights things you want to know before actually sitting down with your client and helping them go through it. There's some important pre-steps, so that is all laid out in there.
Yeah, and again, this is for when you're sitting down with clients who don't have a tax return filing requirement, and you're actually just trying to help them access the economic impact payments. And the third one should follow, even though technically you're only reporting the first and second after filing the 2020 return. So they should expect, after getting the first two, to also get the 1400. And if they, which is the third one, and if they don't, they can file a 2021 return, but they should get it from filing just the 2020. And that should also set them up, if they put their children on there, to get the child tax credit. So essentially the 2020 return is like your golden egg. It's like, if you can get, help a client file a 2020 return, whether it's, using My Free Taxes or getyourrefund.org or contacting tax time, that's kind of our goal and objective here. And technically, like, people can use My Free Taxes even if they have a filing requirement, but just because tax law is complicated, we're here in this document just telling folks to, like, if they have a filing requirement, just use a tax preparer, get some assistance, just because we don't want anything to go wrong for clients. I don't know if there's anything else you want me to go through here, Hannah, or show.
It's just like a last note. It is worth, if your special interest populations are relevant to your client population, it would be worth looking into it. For example, one of them is housing unstable, and we provide so something for the housing unstable population that they would need is a secure mailing address, which could be an obstacle in this population. And so we provide a little bit of information on how an individual could get a free PO box with the post office. And so just, little intricacies like that you may not know otherwise would definitely be worth checking out what we've put in there. It's relevant information we found from our recent discussions or Megan's discussions with her clients.
Yeah, that's great. So I think we're pretty much right on time. I think that's the last thing. And now we're ready for our discussion. I don't know, somehow I'm out of presentation mode. So anyways, you can see it okay here. So I'm gonna stop the recording here so that we can have a bit of a discussion, and then people can come on camera if they want. Let me